Just an FYI, for those of you who don't know me, I come at every case in the same way. I will not even try to come to a conclusion as to Michelle's guilt or innocence until all of the admissible evidence is in. The process matters, and I'll probably talk about that.
With some clients, and I want the house to look decent.
I want to kind of stop and just want to make sure you understand that this is where it starts getting real important. And we know exactly where you were and he was. Okay? And just so you know, what you told us the first couple times doesn't match up to this. This is very low. So you put the dishes in the sink.
Yes.
Okay. And Fotis, you don't know what he did? Did he stay at Jefferson or did he leave?
No, he was going to go to A Mountain.
Okay.
But I don't know if he already left, but at some point he calls me.
All right, well, I know you keep trying to get to that, but I want to go back. During lunch, what are you guys talking about? I know it's a fast lunch, but what are you discussing? Having any discussions with anything?
Not that
Not talking about anything? You gotta be talking
No,
about
of course you talk, but
okay.
I don't remember like what I talk every day of my life when I have lunch.
All right.
Obviously,
well, you do remember a lot of details on some things.
Oh,
so
I do because I've been with Andy really focusing to be as much detail as possible to be able to give you as much information as I remember. But what I talk exactly, I don't have.
So let me ask you directly, was there any mention of Jennifer Dulos during your lunch with Fotis on the 24th?
No, I don't know if that time we spoke about the problem that he didn't answer the phone. That Wednesday, I never knew.
No, the Andreas phone. What phone you took? Oh, you're doing the 22nd. Right.
That Wednesday, he told me he went to Gracemark.
All right, I'm not.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
At some point, I don't know what day, I said why you didn't.
All right.
But
I gotta stop you because during the Friday of May 24th, when you're eating lunch with Fotis, is there any mention of Jennifer?
no.
You want to talk about Jennifer?
Did
you ask him where he was that morning?
No.
When you got up that morning, were you expecting to see him?
No, because sometimes he wakes up and you have his phone. He wakes up at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning.
Right.
And
right.
he watches TV, he reads. Sorry, this is bothering me. And he leaves the room because he turns the light on and it bothers me. Or if he doesn't want to leave, I go to Nicole's room. Sometimes he moves to another room to read.
Mm-hmm. Is that something he always does?
Yes.
He's always done that? Or is that more recent?
It was more recent because
Kimball goes at her with, "We know where you were." Notice the lack of concern from her. If she'd lied to them, you'd expect to see anxiety here, but you don't. In fact, a heck of a lot of people would have been anxious here despite the fact they were telling the truth. She's not worried about them knowing where she was. And she again says she doesn't know what time Fotis left, but she is clear that at some point he called. She'd already said this more than once, and she'd already indicated there were several calls, and she couldn't remember which one was the one in which Fotis asked her to bring supplies. Funny how Kimball either hasn't heard this despite it being stated more than once, or he's simply ignoring it because it doesn't fit with what he wants to believe. When he asked her what she and Fotis talked about that day during lunch, you can see she's struggling to remember. This doesn't look like a delay tactic. He's not letting her think, though. She points out that they're asking for details of a specific lunch conversation when she has lunch conversations every day of her life. To her, it was an ordinary day. so she'd have no reason to remember anything specific about it. And I note that there was a lot that Pavel didn't remember, and he got a pass. Even the prosecutor said, well, you couldn't remember because it was just another ordinary day, right? So he would have no reason to remember specific details. And my question here is, why is it that other people get granted this leeway, which is reasonable leeway, by the way, but Michelle doesn't get granted that same leeway? There are enough double standards in this case to give a person whiplash. Michelle brings up that it's possible she asked Fotis why he hadn't answered his phone on the previous Wednesday, but she couldn't remember if that was the day she brought it up or if that was a different time. So she's trying to tell them about this, but once again, Kimball won't let her. It's important to note that Fotis isn't always in the bed in the morning. That's important for two reasons. One, it wouldn't strike her as unusual. Therefore, she wouldn't go looking for him, and it wouldn't stand out in her mind. Now, I know some people are going to say, oh, but the timeline said. But be careful not to conflate the timeline that Fotis wrote with the timeline that Michelle wrote. They are two different documents. Don't treat them as the same. They are not. The second reason it's important that Fotis wasn't always in bed in the morning is that it goes to Fotis's state of mind and this change in his behavior. And this is an important bit of information. Michelle did disclose this previously, by the way, and she did tell them that this was relatively new behavior from Fotis.
I don't remember, like, when I first moved, he was sleeping very, like we were kind of like in synchronized, like we were synchronized with someone.
So now when you say more recent, how recent? When did the waking up at 4 a.m.?
Like, for instance, when he came to Vail in March, that he came to visit, he was waking up a lot, and he would tell me that it was because there was 2 hours of difference.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know if it was that was bothering him.
But you told us in the first interview that recently, prior to May 24th of 2019, he had started waking up earlier in the morning.
And there was a guy, I don't know if I told you, that he wanted Fotis to sell his piece of land in New Hartford, Nick.
Told us about that.
I told you? Okay, he was calling like at 4:30 in the morning. He did several calls, and that was annoying.
Sure.
But yes, he was waking up 4, 5, and for me that was a bother because I don't wake up at that time.
You also weren't in that room that morning, right? You were
No,
in the
I know,
hall.
but I'm saying that in other days,
Right, in other days.
it bothered me, and I would either move to Nicole's room, or he would go to another place.
Okay.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
do you even know what time he woke up on May 24th?
No.
Okay, because you weren't in there with him, right?
No.
Okay. So you have lunch and you know that he's going to 80 Mountain Spring after lunch? How do you know that?
Because he told me.
Okay. And
He told me.
what's he going to 80 Mountain Spring to do?
He told me that it was because Rania, the realtor,
Right.
was going the next day with some clients and the house has to be clean.
Right. And did he tell you that at lunchtime?
No, he told me that he was going to 80, and then at some point he calls me saying, bring cleaning supplies
Mm-hmm.
to clean the house
Okay.
for Rania.
Okay.
That's more or less what I remember. And he called me like at 1:50 something, then he calls me like at 3.
Well, let me just tell you that at 1:33, Fotis is driving to Jefferson, or driving to Mountain Spring. And by 1:36, you guys are both arriving at Mountain Spring.
Okay, so I went with the cleaning stuff.
Okay. But you went with him. You guys are both driving into the driveway together, like literally one right behind
We
you.
were together. But
Do you remember driving over to Mountain Spring?
I remember driving.
And which car were you driving?
I was driving the Cherokee.
Okay.
But can you repeat again?
Well, I don't want to tell you, I'm trying to ask you. No, I'm trying to ask you, when you went over in the Jeep, where was Fotis already there at Mountain Spring?
I recall that, yes, but can you just repeat what you said? I didn't
I
understand.
will in a second, yeah.
Okay.
So, you drive the Jeep over at 136 and you arrive. And you're saying Fotis was already there? That's not, he's driving in right ahead of you. You're following
So
him.
they are following me.
You don't remember that?
No, I don't. It could happen.
Okay, it did happen. Absolutely did happen. No, I'm just telling
I'm
you.
not saying no.
Okay. No, I'm just telling you that it's strange that you wouldn't remember that.
No, I don't, John.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay. No, I can't tell you what you were talking about.
Okay, and I do remember going back to the house at some point and then coming back. Like, I did go back from 80 to the house,
Yes,
and
you
from
did.
Forest Jefferson to the house,
Yes,
because
that's
I
correct.
changed the vacuum for a room.
So when you came over in the Jeep, what did you have with you in the Jeep for cleaning supplies?
I brought bucket, a sponge, garbage bags, disposable, how do you call the gloves, disposable gloves.
Yeah, like plastic gloves,
Yeah,
latex gloves,
yeah.
tight gloves, or like the ones that go up your arm?
No, the short ones.
The short ones.
I have package because I use that a lot. Like when I clean like the cats,
Drop-ins, right.
whatever, like that.
I had a cat, I
The
understand.
box with the cat, the dog. When I clean, like when I'm doing like the meat or the chicken.
You wear
chicken.
latex gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Like the
yeah, you
chicken.
gotta watch out for chicken. What color was the bucket, do you remember?
Our bucket, it's white, plastic white.
Does it have a handle? Is it like a construction bucket, or is it like a bucket you use to the
The
beach?
ones that you buy in the supermarket.
Okay. You remember what color the sponge was?
I believe it's yellow and green.
And do you remember what color the bags were?
Black.
Were they heavy bags, or?
Her story about 80 Mountain Springs is supported by 2 texts from the realtor. When Kimball confronts her on the fact that she and Fotis arrived at 80 Mountain Springs within 3 minutes of each other, it's important to note that in her first interview, she did tell them this. She'd said she thought they both arrived either at the same time or close to the same time. And now she's not denying it. She's simply saying she can't remember exactly. And that's not unusual to see this from a witness. In respect to the cleaning supplies, she mentions a green and yellow sponge. How many of you have had one of those sponges? It's too common an item from which to draw any inference, let alone a conclusion. She also took over garbage bags, and that right there would explain her DNA on the bags. Early in this trial, I wondered if 80 Mountain Spring was a place to clean up and to dispose of things, but based on the evidence, I no longer think that. Fotis had come home for lunch, looking and acting normal. Now that doesn't mean he didn't commit the crime. The evidence says he did. But it does mean he'd have had to have cleaned himself up somewhere before going home and being seen not only by Michelle, but by anyone else who happened to be going to the foregroup office. Police found no evidence of Jennifer at Mountain Spring. I don't think Jennifer had been taken there at all. I think 80 Mountain Spring was simply the site where Fotis could unload and load that bicycle into the Tacoma without being seen. Then he could come and go and nobody would notice, or at least nobody would be able to identify him as he was driving the red truck. Beyond that, I'm thinking Mountain Spring is a bit of a red herring. Now, having said that, I do think that the police were absolutely right in searching there and investigating there, especially considering that Tacoma was there and there was so much back and forth there on that day. And I still do find it weird that there was so much back and forth with Michelle, Fotis, and Pavel. Of course, that begs a number of questions. Where did Fotis go between the time he got back from New Canaan and when he arrived home? When and where was Jennifer taken out of the Tacoma? Who helped Fotis move Jennifer from the Tacoma so that Fotis could be back in time for lunch? Who is the other man whose DNA is all over the evidence? And no, it's not Pavel. Yes, one of Pavel's hairs was found on one of the sponges that was in those bags, but that was it. Somebody else transported Jennifer somewhere. Who was it?
Were they lightweight? I mean, were they?
No, garbage bags.
Right, but sometimes they make heavy duty garbage bags. Sometimes they make, regular.
Yeah, no, I believe I took like the big garbage ones because I have those on the back in the butler's pantries are. That's where all the.
This is where all this came from? Butler's pantry?
No, like the bucket, well, what came from the kitchen, the sponge, the Windex, the Clorox. I don't know if it was from the Clorox. That's from bathrooms or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Is it a spray or is it a big gallon of Clorox? It's a spray?
The one that says bleach, Clorox. The brand is Clorox, but it's like bleach, all purposes.
Okay. Where was that from?
I haven't. Usually the cleaning supplies are divided either in the laundry room or in the kitchen.
Okay.
Like the vacuum and the broom, usually they're in the closet far in the mud room, near the stairs. Or sometimes the vacuum is in the laundry, because it depends when Renata leaves it.
Okay.
What else did I take? Paper towel. I think that's it.
What were you planning to clean?
The house.
Like the whole house? The house,
The
right?
house and then clean it up.
Okay.
So I cleaned, what did I clean? Countertop in the living room where the fireplace was, there were like dirt or like balls or something, like I think it was an animal thing.
They all got it.
Yeah, that house had bats, had owl,
Okay.
that Andy, the guy that used to work for Fotis, was always complaining that I cannot find a guy that hires someone
Were
to.
they in the house? They would have droppings in the house?
They would have what?
Were the owls and bats inside the house and there would be droppings in
The
the house?
bats were supposedly in the attic.
Okay.
Then there was a problem with one of the bathrooms that insects will come in, like bees, flies.
Okay.
Then there was an owl. The owl did disappear. I don't know if Andy took it away. Anyway, so I cleaned the kitchen countertop. I went upstairs to the bathrooms and I put the liquid, the Clorox things, the bleach, and I just click the handle to the water come down. Then I went at some point to the house and I came back.
Back to Jefferson.
Exactly, back to Jefferson.
All right, before that, what is Fotis doing?
Fotis, I saw him from the window of the bathroom of the master bedroom. At some point he was fixing, he had some, I think they were pink or blue ribbons along the drive of the house. He was very upset always that when Stefan had the open houses, people were stepping in the grass. So he would put ribbons, lines.
So people would not step there.
Yes. At some point, I know he went to the basement.
Mm-hmm.
In the basement of that house, I don't know if you guys been, it's like, and it's unfinished.
Mm-hmm.
And it has like construction things.
Okay.
I've been in that basement maybe 2 times.
Okay, so we went to the basement, why?
No, I didn't go that day.
He went, he said at some point,
At
he went.
some point, because I saw that door open,
Okay.
and obviously the door was open is because he was down there. Because that door usually is closed and it has a sign that says, I think it says unfinished basement, do not open, or
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I know it used to have a paper. I don't know if it has that paper anymore.
All right.
And that's it. I was inside the house.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Whatever else you can remember.
No, but at some point I went to the house to grab the broom. But you have 1 times there.
Right.
And then you came back.
You went to the house
Yeah,
at Fort Jefferson.
I went to the house for Jefferson.
And how long did you stay there? All right, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I got to interrupt for a second. The first time you went to 80 Mountain Spring shop, you were cleaning the kitchen countertops and the bathrooms upstairs? Anything else?
I mean, I don't remember exactly what I cleaned, but I do know what I cleaned. I don't know what I cleaned first.
That's right.
Okay, but I did tell you the countertops.
Yep.
And things of the toilet.
Toilet bowl. Toilet bowl.
The toilets.
Right.
Yeah.
The toilet.
Of the bathrooms of the ones on the top.
How many bathrooms are there? 3.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4 bathrooms. Anything else?
I cleaned that part of the living room. I cleaned the outside. There's a terrace in front of the kitchen.
Yep.
I used the broom and I picked up like leaves and like that.
So you swept the terrace?
Yes, because they accumulate in the corners.
Okay.
No, I didn't do that much.
Okay. So when you arrived this first time, Fotis was driving in the Suburban?
When I arrived, when you say that we supposedly we were together,
Yes, you were. You told me.
I was in the Cherokee,
Right.
and Fotis was in the Suburban.
Okay. Were there any other cars there? In the
Yes,
driveway?
the red pickup, Abel's car.
Okay, so when you drove it,
Ask a different question, get a different answer. This is the first time they asked if there were any other vehicles there. Her answer was yes, the red pickup. They had not previously asked this question. Previously, what they asked was who was there and what each person was driving. At the end of her first interview, she did mention that the police might want to look at the Tacoma. Her statements are being framed as somehow hiding or inconsistent when they actually are not. The witness is being held accountable for what the police asked and didn't ask. Like a civilian should be a police mind reader.
already at 8, was Pavel there?
No,
Okay, where was he? Do you know where he went?
supposedly, I mean, I didn't ask, but normally what he does, he's in taking care of the house of New Haven.
Okay, so you don't know specifically where Pavel was, but you did see him at 80 Mountain Spring, but his truck was there.
No, I didn't see Pavel. I saw the car.
Okay,
I saw Pavel's
the red pickup.
The red pickup.
But you didn't see
I saw
Pavel.
Pavel afterwards when he came.
Right, when you
around
first
four.
arrived there, you didn't see him.
No, I didn't see her.
Do you have any idea why the truck was there? Do you have any idea how it got there? Okay. So you went back at one point to
To the house.
to Jefferson. How long do you think you were at 80 Mountain Spring before you went back to Jefferson? Any idea?
I don't know why I think like for maybe an hour, 40 minutes, no?
Okay, 15 minutes.
Okay.
And now, I would like to, how long were you at Fort Jefferson when you went back for the vacuum and the room switch?
It could be then like an hour that I was there, and then I know at some point I went back and I stayed longer, but I don't know which time I was longer, if it was the first time or the second time. Because I did clean, part of the house.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know which one I was 15 minutes and which one I was more.
Okay.
But I
That's why I was asking what you
Oh,
claimed.
okay, I know, but again, that's what I told you, like, I'm not gonna remember. I know I went back at some point and I came back.
Okay.
That I know.
But when you went back to Jefferson, is it true that you only went back to get a vacuum, or to switch the vacuum out because it wasn't working?
Yes, maybe I stayed there for a little bit longer. Maybe I could have stayed and do some
Was
emails.
there anything going on at 80 Mountain Spring that you didn't want to be a part of?
Not that I know, not of my knowledge. I went back, and at some point I went back to 80 with the room.
You did go back to 80. but
Exactly.
it wasn't.
Until
If you're just going back, if you're at 80 and you're going back to Fort Jefferson to switch out a non-functioning vacuum, and then you're going to return to 80 Mountain Spring, you're at Fort Jefferson a lot longer than we would expect that to be the case.
I probably stayed there for a while. Maybe I was in the computer. I could be, I don't know, maybe I stayed, and then I went, I do remember going back
No,
with the
we
room.
definitely went back.
Okay,
We understand.
with the room, and I swiped.
We're not quizzing you on time. We're not quizzing you on, you understand. We're asking you what kinds of things you did, which would account for times that we know are the case.
That's what I'm talking to.
So we're just trying to understand. For instance, another thing is you told us you were washing windows.
No, I never said I was washing windows.
You said you were cleaning windows.
No, I did not. That's a lie.
I'm not lying, we're not lying.
I never said, I said I looked at the window and I saw photos.
We're talking about the previous interviews, you said typed out right here, the things you say now,
Well, no, I
they're
didn't.
not all the same.
I didn't
Would
clean.
you like me to clean it for you?
Yes.
Well, that's very interesting because there's another thing that we can play for you. Do you realize that? I'm not sure you.
Detective, I'm just going to stop it at 154-57. You indicated that the defendant had said in her previous interviews that she was washing windows, and she indicated that she hadn't said that. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Now, did she say that in her previous interviews?
She in fact did not.
Was that a mistake?
Yes.
Okay, where did that information come from?
That information came from Pavel Gumeni, who stated that when he arrived at 80 Mountain Spring Road, Fotis told him that Michelle Troconis had been washing windows.
She corrected you.
She corrected us, yes.
Very good.
Realize it, so. You play back the video.
You have to see it from our point of view. Like I said earlier, we know a lot than we did when we finished. You remember in explicit detail a lot of the things I'm going to call silly, pointless things that were maybe important to you. Like the receipt was in my purse on the counter. But now when we're getting into like the grid, you're not remembering the explicit details that you really need to remember to help yourself. Okay.
I don't understand. Can you explain?
You remember a lot of simple detail. I went and took a picture with the robot. I was going to this person's house. I was going to that person's house. But now that we're at the place that's very important, I don't know if I was going for 10 minutes or an hour and a half, but leading up to that, you're very good.
Can I tell you how? Because I asked Bill for the chats. I asked my family for the chats. I asked my dad, everybody that I usually talk to,
Yeah.
even in court, I ask them for chats, conversations.
So you've been going through all that?
I've been going, and that's how I know, okay, I went to bed at this time, I got my AT&T phone logs, so that's how I know at what time I was talking to whoever I was talking or texting. That's why I remember, but it's not because I have a Iron Man memory.
Okay.
So I'm sorry if I said I was cleaning window.
Well, you definitely said you were,
Okay,
that's why we're asking you
Okay.
why you're not saying that.
What I remember, I said I was in the bathroom and I was looking through the window and I saw Fotis fix the ribbons of the street.
This is the first time we've heard of that.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's what I heard about the.
Okay, we may.
Or maybe I do remember.
I remember hearing about there being grass that they planted and so on and so forth, but I don't think that came from you. That the grass had been seeded, the soil, so they could grow the grass. The grass was coming down nice. I didn't on the road.
I didn't do that grass.
No, we know that. We're not saying anything different. It's just, it becomes confusing. I understand.
So the thing that we all didn't hear when it actually happened, but we now have on tape that we can play for you.
She said she saw Pavel after, when he came with the Raptor. First, this is consistent with her previous statement. Also, she just gave the police exculpatory evidence for Pavel. If Fotis's plan was to frame Pavel, Michelle just ruined that. Michelle is clear she doesn't know how long she was there. She guesses it was about 40 minutes or an hour maybe, but she doesn't know, and she doesn't know which time that was in the course of all this back and forth. She just knows what she did, which is clean the house, and she described that. If anyone later tries to cherry pick a time and say, aha, it wasn't 40 minutes, beware. Based on the prosecution's evidence, there are 2 time frames that would match her statement here. She was at Mountain Spring from 2:01 to 2:25. Now, not quite 40 minutes, but it's close. Also, from 4:23 to 4:58, she was at Mountain Spring. That's about 40 minutes. Notice that Kimball assumed the vacuum was not functioning. That's not what she said, though. She tries to correct him, but he just talks over her. He says, "We're not quizzing you about the time," except they are. And he says he wants to know what she was doing, except she told him repeatedly. So she tells them again. Now, it's not unusual for the police to either pretend they forgot what a witness said or to repeatedly ask a question and make the witness repeat their story. Based on Kimball's pattern of behavior, I don't think that's what this is, but I could be wrong. They confront her saying she's previously told them that she was washing windows, and they're very confident in this. The thing is, she never said that. Really, it's not in dispute. It even came out in court. The prosecutor agreed. She never said that. Kimball was wrong, but insistent. Just like he was wrong, but insistent about the rain. A few minutes after this interaction, Michelle says, "If I said I was cleaning windows," you see how quickly and easily that just happened? She is accepting that she was wrong. He was wrong, but she's accepting that it was her. Can you see how a person could be influenced to give a false statement to police? How a person could come to believe something that isn't true because an authority told them and insisted that it was true? Michelle's not completely stupid, yet she is still being influenced. How much easier would it be for someone with less intelligence, less life experience to be influenced? And people give false confessions all the time, far more than you would think. So when you hear defense attorneys arguing about how an interview was conducted, or you hear complaints about inducements or conditions or mental state, etc., there are good reasons for that. Documented, researched, and tested reasons. If the goal is to get the truth, these reasons and the psychology and the process is important. If the goal is to just close a case and get somebody put in jail for something, well, then that's different. But I submit to you that it is no service to victims or society in general to jail innocent people, thereby allowing the guilty to walk free. Can you tell I want that unknown male accomplice to be caught? That's really bugging me. They challenged her on the details she remembers versus the details that she doesn't. I get where they're coming from here. If I was in Clabby's shoes, I'd be thinking the same way. And only remembering unimportant details while forgetting important ones is a cue for investigators to question further. So Clabby does just that. Pretty directly, but he does it. And he gets an explanation, and the explanation makes sense. Michelle actually doesn't remember a lot of even the unimportant details. The reason she's coming up with them is that she went looking for those answers on her phone and in her purse on receipts so that she could tell police, because they were asking for details. The fact that she doesn't understand which detail is important and which isn't is a whole other thing. Earlier in this interview, she said she'd been trying to remember as many details as possible. So she looked at her phone and at her receipts, thinking it would be helpful. Remember, she doesn't know which details are important to them and which ones are not. She doesn't have the case file. She doesn't know what they know. And this is common. It's common to hear witnesses blather on and on and on about unimportant details and skip over ones that are important. And often the important details, those ones that the investigators want to zero in on, it doesn't even occur to the witness that that particular detail is going to be important. And when it comes to details, sometimes even investigators don't immediately recognize the importance of something. And I'm not talking about poor investigators. I'm including the good ones here. Pointing to the importance of a specific detail is easy when it's done in hindsight and with the benefit of a whole lot more information. My analytics show me that most people don't want to watch an hour-long video all the way through, so I'm going to do this in many parts so people get shorter, more digestible videos. Those interested in the whole series can simply watch them all in succession. Trust your gut. See you in the comments.